So Aidan, welcome to the cinema here at Sky Central. We've rather pushed the old boat out here for you because Paddy Brennan, just in a little room somewhere. Nico de Boinville, we had to use Hendo's house. But for you, a whole cinema. So thanks for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, no, I pushed the boat out for you to agree to do it as well.
Well,
so.
that's the thing, because I first approached you in November 2021 and you said, yeah, I'll do it. And a few months went by. But in May 2022, you said to me, I'm ready to talk. Can you remember that month what might have happened that made you think, I want to talk? Because you are not a guy who does interviews.
No, it's, I don't know, and I suppose I've got actually probably more guarded the older I've got, not the opposite. Realistically, if you had asked me every month from when you originally asked me to when I agreed in May, you would have had a different answer every month. So actually, Matt, sorry, I'm not going to do it. I am going to do it, and here we are, we're going to do it. So I don't actually know, it's just kind of like my moods change with the wind.
Do you enjoy being a jockey? Is for you being a jockey, is it a good life? Do you love it?
Yeah, I love, yeah, in general, horses have given me the most amazing life and the most amazing experiences, and like I've done things that you'd never dream of doing, or you do dream of doing when you become a jockey, and I'm lucky that I've achieved a lot of them.
What's the worst bit of it?
I suppose it can be quite tedious, basically 12 months of the year going up, down, and I've done that for so long, and then I suppose we'll get to later on, in the last few years I've decided to kind of change tack a bit, and it's kind of a work in progress, and at this moment in time I'm not sure if it's working or not, but I decided to take the summer off, for example, and see a bit of the world, and I really enjoyed it, but since I've come back it actually hasn't gone how I thought it would go. So I did plan on travelling all next summer as well, but I think I'll have to rethink that, and kind of went against the grain, and I don't know if it's worked or not, but I'm not particularly happy at how it's going right at this moment in time, but I don't have a lot to complain about either.
Okay, let's turn the clock back to the early days of Aidan Coleman coming on the planet. Your mum and dad, Pat and Eileen, met in college, and they were teachers effectively, weren't they?
No, just teachers.
Yeah.
So I'm the only one
Well,
I'm one of four, and every one of my siblings, including my parents, went to UL in Limerick, and I'm the only one who wasn't third level educated. But yeah, we had like, we're not horsey background at all. My brother Kevin decided to get into it, and he was my older brother, my jockey coach, and I'd say of the thousands of rides I've had, I'd say there's only a handful I haven't spoke to Kevin about. Every day it's the first phone call and leave the races, and I just followed him effectively. So I don't know how he got into it, so I didn't ask him,
But I think he would probably say that you had no interest in it, really. Like, I think, isn't it a bit of a myth that you just followed him? Like, I mean, you didn't really though, did you? Like, you weren't very keen to start with.
No, probably not. No, probably 12 or 13 before I really sat on the horse. Mum would have had us on him when we were babies and that, but never.
You used to sit on the sofa though, didn't you?
Yeah.
Put the old reins over the sofa and ride a finish.
Yeah. So like ultimately, I only ever wanted to be a jockey. Never actually wanted to ride horses as such.
Right.
It's only the last few years that I've actually, decided to actually learn how to ride properly. Last few months, actually, probably not even years, and kind of go back to how I probably should have started. So I never really wanted to ride. I just wanted to be a jockey. So you watched the racing on the TV because Kevin was interested, and I said, I want to do that. And then there was a pony outside, and like you get on it and put the irons up as short as they go, and because that's what they did there. And people would tell you put them down and ride this or ride that. I was like, no, I want to do.
But you obviously had some natural ability because you won loads of pony races.
Yeah, but it's like anything. It's like you'll see, I was fortunate throughout my career that I've always kind of gotten good horses and haven't messed it up that much. Well, that's up for debate, I suppose.
Do you think were you an easy character, or were you quite stubborn?
Oh no, I'm not an easy character. I'm fully self-aware about that. Yeah. Stubborn would be generous, I'd say.
Okay, so you basically got quite a nice upbringing.
Brilliant.
Kevin's egging you on, as far as I can tell.
Yes.
You're not that keen.
No, probably not quite that much, I suppose.
Well, were you keen or not?
I probably was, actually. Yeah, I would have been. Yeah, when I got to 13 or 14, I started the pony racing, which is like, which is a massive difference between Ireland and England as well. And obviously it's going through a bit of a tough time for obvious reasons. But
I mean, Kevin says, I quote, Aidan had no interest when I was around. Is he just remembering it differently?
no, he's probably on the right lines. Yeah, he probably is on the right lines, to be fair. But he used to kind of take me to ride, and we used to fall out a lot, you see, because he'd teach me and I'd fall off, and he'd get a dig from him when I was in the ground and all that. So like, it was hard. Yeah, probably. So I probably didn't really show much interest around him because I didn't want to get beaten.
Okay, so we're not absolutely sure whether you were massively into it or not.
No, neither am I.
But you end up at Henrietta Knights. So you're doing the pony scene in Ireland. How do you end up at Henrietta Knights?
Yeah, I suppose because Kevin was doing reasonably well, and it was funny. Someone asked this the other day. At the time, everybody came to England because the best horses then and the most success was then in England. The Irish lads went to England. Now you stay in Ireland. So came to Hen and Terry's and
Terry Biddlecombe.
What a guy! They were so good to me, so good. The work they put into me was ridiculous.
It's fair to say Terry had to shout at you a little bit, didn't he, from time to time?
Riding
too short was one thing he didn't appreciate.
Yeah, I'd much prefer bollocking off Terry than Hen, though.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but we had some great chats, Terry. Hen did a lot more on the riding side and the technical side with me. She spent a lot of time with me in the school and all that, whereas Terry he always stayed out of that. But he was he was an amazingly successful jockey, but he was a real jockey's man at the same time. He wasn't one of them ex-jockeys that said I was better than them. He was always on your side, and I found him fascinating, just from his stories about what they used to do to how he used to do it and all that. And ultimately, it's a completely different era, but it's still the same sport, isn't it? And between the two of them, for different angles, they were fantastic.
And somewhere along the mix, you got to know Sam Thomas a bit, and Sam Thomas seems to have told Hen that Venetia Williams might need a conditional jockey, and you manoeuvred yourself into that position.
Yeah, no, Hen was brilliant, and I suppose it was the best place anyone could go to start and get grounding. But she said to me, "You can stay if you want. We'd like you to stay, but look, there's not actually that many rides for you." And then on comes Venetia.
So I imagine Venetia would be the kind of trainer that you would enjoy, because I think she's highly intelligent. She's been brought up by Martin Pipe, so she knows the program book and the system as well as anyone can know it. I imagine you quite enjoyed working with her.
Not as much as I should. Definitely took it for granted. I'd always I look back sometimes at how I was at Venetia's and cringe and think like that lady put up. I wouldn't probably back to you said tricky at the start or stubborn. I'd say she went. I'd say there was plenty of times now I tested her patience over the years.
So when you see what Charlie Deutsch is doing now with her, is there an element of that could have been me?
Oh no, not at all, because I left Venetia's to go to John Ferguson's, which I'm sure we'll come up to, but she was just the most amazingly brilliant trainer, as we can see, and I was what she's been doing for years and years. But she was so good with me and so loyal, like so loyal. I didn't actually know that there was politics with owners until 7 or 8 years into my career, when I had left Venetia's and John Ferguson's and moved on. I didn't, because I was always protected from that kind of stuff, because Venetia was just like, these are my jockeys and these who's riding my horses, and I just thought that's how it was.
A tricky time would have been the Grand National with Monmone and Stan. You had the choice. You turned down Monmone, as most people would do. It's 100 to 1. You rode Stan, who came down. Monmone goes and wins. And historically, it appeared up until then, winning and losing weren't a combination that you coped with well. I imagine you coped with winning pretty well, but you weren't a great loser, and that must have been if Paddy Brennan had the cue card moment, the Monmone Grand National moment must have been a similar thing for you.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have been. It's pathetic when you look back now. Paddy was there in the moment, and he was on the finish line, was there, and whatever he'd have won or not doesn't really matter. But I just picked the wrong horse in a horse race, and it was pathetic to be that, probably.
And even if you got on Monmone, certainly you'd have won. Either, is it? It's
absolutely, probably more than likely I wouldn't have won, because Liam, he was an amazing person as well, obviously, but that was a great ride if you look through it, how patient he was and everything he did. I've only ever watched it once, about a year ago, and the ride itself was actually sublime. But I think back then there was no balance. I just felt like I had something to prove, and you know, I wasn't a good loser, and you know, didn't have a social life, didn't drink, and didn't go out and do anything. So everything was like, the winning was just supposed to happen, so there was no ups, and the losing wasn't supposed to happen, so there was downs. And I would have been tricky, and I kind of look back now and think, sorry, Venetia. And I do really feel like that.
And obviously, sadly, we've lost Liam now, which you wouldn't have known at that time, of course. But with the benefit of hindsight, do you look back on what happened as far as Liam is concerned and think, well, the least of my worries was not winning the Grand National that year? Or do you still, there's something inside you that still frustrates you?
Gone. No, the right man won the Grand National.
A man you liked as well.
Everyone liked. Everyone liked. He was brilliant. When I started in Venetia's, there was loads of jockeys there at the time, and probably the main effect I had, on any of them, was probably I took Liam's rides more than anyone's, and there was never ever any never any ill will or any ill feeling towards him. He was always supportive. He was always great, and like, he had every reason to be, you know, a little bit cold or off with me, and he never was. But that was just Liam. But then we end up living next to each other again then for the last few years, and we meet for a pint, and we go racing a bit, and we were very good friends in the end, actually.
Okay.
But he was so good to me, considering, like, basically I pushed him out of Venetia's.
So you came over to the UK in 2006. 2015, you joined John Ferguson. Just talking about your actual riding between those years, how has your riding changed, do you think? How are you as a rider? Like when you joined John Ferguson, are you at that point where you think you're as good as anyone out there? Or are you developing all the time?
You probably always think that at the time, but then you look and think, actually, no, I've developed a lot more since that.
How do you develop as a rider from that
It's all about experience. You see these young lads that come in now, and they look good and they are good, and you think, actually, do you know what? Be around for 5 or 6 years, and then we'll really see what you're made of, because then you'll have the injuries, you'll have the lots of losing, you've lost rides, and you'd have got rides, and you'd have had all these different things, and then you can kind of see what they're made of. And
were you conscious about style? Were there people when you were starting out that you were thinking, oh, I'd love to be him?
Richard Hughes or Paul Carberry. Paul Carberry probably mainly because I was going to be a jump jockey, and I never really rode like that. It was more probably by the time I got to John Joe O'Neill that I kind of figured out the way I wanted to ride, or how I prefer to ride now.
Okay. So you've joined John Ferguson. John Ferguson, a completely different outfit, I'd imagine, to Venetia, a completely different type of setup. You've got all these sort of blue blood horses from Sheikh Mohammed's operation. What was John Ferguson like compared to the Venetia days?
I suppose John Ferguson was different setup to any national hunt yard probably ever, and will never happen again. And I was like, literally, I had the best job that's ever been in jump racing. I'm fully aware of that for a period of time, and I'm very grateful for that, because that was in real life, you know, that job. You know, there was no, it was, as you said, the horses, and it was just so straightforward, and there was no, like, John was so good to work with that it was literally, it wasn't real life. And if I had that job now and John stopped, or even the last few years, and he stopped, I would have just stopped as well, because you'd never going back to try and do it again after that. It wouldn't be possible.
John Ferguson, one of his good ones you rode was Nabucco. I thought this was a terrific ride. Dark colours on the inside, the striped cap, and again it's Coleman stalking.
Yeah, it's easy to do it when you're riding a horse of his pedigree. He's out of Cape Verde, which is, you know, she won a Guineas and paid for a Derby and all that. Yeah, she was a fantastic mare. And I don't think he was bred to be doing this, but he was a very good horse. Like John's were. Well, it was just one of the great days we had in 6 months, John and I, and his team, Bloomfields.
You had some good winners, Fergie. When he stopped, though, were you slightly in no man's land?
Oh, very much so. I was very upset when he stopped. Like, geez, it was devastating, actually, because I did appreciate the time. Like I got the job in April or May, and between then and when he said he was stopping, I think we had like 58 winners, ridiculously high strike rate, and it was looking like it was growing all the time, and it was very exciting times, and then all of a sudden, gone.
So you do what?
I went to John Joe was up the road, so I just went and rode out there. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was still riding a little bit for Venetia at the time, but that kind of gone its separate ways, because I did effectively leave there, obviously, and went to John Joe's, and ended up kind of falling in there.
You go to John Joe, we've talked about the development of your riding, and you mentioned that your riding changed a little bit there at Jackdaws. Why would that be?
John Joe liked his horses ridden a certain way, so when I went to him, he probably had to educate me and chaperone me a bit into how he wanted them ridden, because Venetia never rode them like that, and John Ferguson's never really ridden like that. So John Joe kind of educated me, and he spent a lot of time with me and going through a lot of races, and so any abuse I get for being too patient, you can blame John Joe O'Neill. But
You mentioned the word abuse though, because I know in the past you're on social media, but I know in the past you've absolutely slated it. Like, you think social media is one of the worst things of all time.
yeah, probably a bit naive to say that at the time. I suppose there's a lot of great about social media, isn't there? There's a lot of very good points, but then there's a lot of negative to it. But that's just life, isn't it?
If you were slated though, are you the kind of person that would get to you?
Not
Or would it have got to you 10 years ago?
I suppose it gets to everyone to a point, but like, it's not. We don't mind, like, and I'm fully aware that jockeys are probably too sensitive to criticism. We're doing a sport that's gambled on, it's watched all the time, and there's livelihoods at stake. So like, I think we are probably very sheltered and probably very, I think we get too offended too easily. But it's not criticism, it's abuse, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? No problem with someone saying that was a bad ride, why did you do this? But it's just the abuse is like, which isn't fair in any walk of life.
I have a feeling with you, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, that now, if someone said something, if I go on the telly and said, what was Coleman doing there? You'd be fine with it. But maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't talk to me for a few weeks.
Well, I suppose it depends, but at the same time, like, I think.
But I'm trying to say that I think that's how you might have changed. I think you've changed.
I'm definitely changing, and hopefully for the better. But it's not been easy. Like, it's not. It's a lot, like, interacting. It's not. Like, something like this is a big thing for me to do. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get inside.
Yeah,
because
best of luck. So am I.
Yeah. You're single at the moment?
Yeah.
You see, that would surprise me.
I'm quite independent, like, it's like, it's interesting because, like, I've
had long-term relationships.
Yeah,
You know how to have a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But, like, I suppose.
I mean, I'm not a great person to talk about this, so don't get me wrong.
We turn the interview around and get more views. Anyway.
I'm not a good example to anyone, but it's like, I'm just saying that, like, it's there's clearly I think a lot going on with you.
I don't know.
Do you think you'd be good to go out with?
Now I think I would, yeah. Before probably not, because when you're a sportsman or trying to be a sportsman or whatever, I know I still am. Like, it's not that easy. There's a lot of issues that come into it, and you get called selfish and all that, but it's not actually being a selfish person. It's just that it's so time consuming that you need to go here and you need to go there and you need to do this. So you don't have the time to give to people or whatever. You don't delegate it well. I don't know, to be honest. That's why I'm probably single.
We've gone off on a long tangent since I said we'll get back to John Joe. So let's try and get back to John Joe, though. You were elaborating on him.
But so I was there for, I think, a couple of seasons. Not actually sure how. And he would, like I said, I really enjoyed it. He was a really good mentor. Didn't have a great bunch of horses. I think that was well documented at the time. We had a few good winners, but in general, like, the quality of horse wasn't there. So it wasn't difficult. It was a great time, a great couple of years, but it was just, there probably wasn't the success that you'd think that looks like is there now, if you know what I mean. They seem to have a good band of horses now, don't they? But they definitely weren't there back then. We had a few stars, but that's it.
You edge in, though, by being there, I guess, to riding a few more horses for JP McManus. And while there's no official number one, most people over here see you as, if there's a big ride coming up that's not trained by John Joe, that John Joe Jr. will ride, the chances are you will get it, John Bon being a classic example at the moment.
I suppose my name's in the hat, but, like, there's not, like, Dave, JP.
So genuinely, you not sat at home thinking, if a good one comes along, I'm...
No, not at all. And why should I? You know what I mean? We've had great days, and they've been massive supporters. And if you look through my last 2 years, without them, you're in a very different place. So JP and his family and his team have, they've been unbelievable to me. And really.
So with John Bonsay, who does Frank Berry call you? Does AP call you?
Do you not know the story about John Bonsay?
Nicky Henderson call you?
Did you not? Like, so
okay,
you kind of seem to miss things, you lot. Nico was actually jocked up on John Bon at Newbury, and he got a fall the day before schooling. It was on the Friday, he ran the novice hurdle, and he got a fall schooling the day before.
Yeah.
And he couldn't ride Jump On.
Yeah,
So then I came in for the spare.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, so I fell into Jump On, if you know what I
But
mean.
you wouldn't necessarily keep that. Nicky's
I suppose then Constitution Hill came on the scene, and they both looked like they were supreme novice horses. Well, they were, and
Okay. So genuinely, you're not. I mean, I'm being serious here. Like, you're not sat at home thinking Frank Berry's going to call today and say, "Can you ride this or that?" It's just if the call goes, you're happy.
I'm quite pragmatic and all that. I'm not sat at home thinking anyone's going to call me. If you know what I mean. No one should. You know, no one has any should have any kind of reason to call me, if you know what I mean. They want me, I'm there, but I don't.
But it's interesting you say that, because we've lost a whole group of top jockeys, or what many were called special jockeys. So when you say, I wouldn't expect it, I think quite a lot of punters or racing fans would say, well, Coleman is right up there now in the UK as one of the big race riders.
Yeah, I'd like to think I am, but it's not my nature to expect anything, if you know what I mean. It's not like I don't. If you expect stuff like why should I expect something over someone else? If you know, why should I want the phone to call me?
But you rate yourself, yeah?
Of course I do. Yeah, I'm massively self-confident and all that. But that only comes true when you get on the horse, if you know what I mean. But like, why should they call me over Sam Twiston-Davis or Brian Hughes or whoever?
We mentioned getting horses from trainers and outside rides not easy. Getting them at Manor Source, well, getting Epatome was certainly a result.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best feelings I've ever had of racehorses there. Like her sectionals, her last furlong uphill, not extended, was ridiculously fast. I think when you were at it as long as I was at it before I got the good horses, one thing I always said when I did get them, they didn't come to me that easy. I thought, I'm going to enjoy them. I've spent 10 or 12 years looking at other lads riding these things. Like, I'm going to enjoy when I ride them, and now I can genuinely say I cannot wait to get out and ride Jump On or Epatante or Paisley or whatever, because yeah, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But you know, you really have to appreciate when you get on them, because it's a long journey to get to that stage. So you're not going to ruin it by dropping being too nervous.
And she obviously did it again. Some old favourites here, Silver Streak and Not So Sleepy. And well, was it a race that you felt you should have won?
I don't think so. I've actually thought about this race probably more than any. Usually when it's done, and you don't really kind of go back over it. But I did.
You could have pressed the button between the second last and the last.
I think I pressed it too soon.
Really?
Yeah, I pressed it there, really. She pressed it there.
But at the line, she's closing, though.
I think maybe circumstances or anything. I don't think it was necessarily a bad ride, but
Just watching your whip use there. Perfect on the backside. Absolutely perfect use of the stick. The stick is in the news at the moment. But you wouldn't be one of those sort of whip happy. I've never thought of you as a jockey who...
No,
needs to use it
16,
20 times.
Like anyone, I've had whip bands over the years. It kind of happens, isn't it? It's kind of mistakes or whatever. But yeah, the whip, yeah.
So we've seen Epatome win a fighting fifth, dead heat in a fighting fifth, and then get absolutely destroyed in a fighting fifth with Constitution Hill. I've spoken to you again before about Constitution Hill. There was a moment where you were on a gallop at Hendo's and you saw Constitution Hill, and it basically fried your mind. You hadn't seen much like this before.
Yeah, first thing I asked was who owned them, because I didn't know what it was. It was a piece of work in back, I'd say the October of last year, and
would you have been on Jump On?
No, there was nothing like that. No, I know the horse, but there was nothing like that. But he did a piece of work, and I remember pulling up, and Sean was riding him. I was like, what is that? And he told me, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's special.
What do you make of this horse now on the back of
he's on his way to greatness, as long as he just gets the longevity. I think, when people say, is he one of the greats? I think he no doubt has the ability and will be if he gets the rub of the green, as in and stand on a stone before Champion Hurdle, or he just needs to do it for the year for a few years to come to be, I suppose, really spoke about in the Hurricane Flies and the Istabracks. But I'm sure he's just as good as them. It's not his fault. He's only young.
So in some ways, we can go on to talk about Jump On on the back of this, because of course you tried to beat Constitution Hill in the Supreme Novices Hurdle with Jump On, and there were plenty of people who were saying, "What the hell is Coleman doing?"
And Paul,
and Paul Townend, because you went hammer and tongs.
Yeah,
just explain that, because there was logic to it.
It was maybe slightly too much, but like hindsight's a fool's foresight. Like you had to try, and I can't remember the prices, if you know what I mean, but.
But it was the only way you thought you could beat
Well, it was the
Constitution Hill.
only way, but obviously turned out that it wasn't. But we got John Bon back and he won his grade 1 in his next start at Daintree, so that was important, because if he hadn't won at Daintree, it would have been because of what happened at Cheltenham. He's too hard a race. And I get very defensive about him because I think he's been picked on just because, one, is probably price tag, and two, he's a little bit precocious before a race. But as far as riding in a race, he's
still like that now, though?
Yeah, he's a jig jockey, but he's there to race. That's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Firm like that than asleep. But
Does he feel a better chaser than hurdler?
yeah, he always was going to be, wasn't he? He was always going to be. He's got the size and he's got a big rangy horse, and his cruising speed actually suits chases more than hurdles. It just works different in really whatever way.
Class-wise, is he the best horse you've ridden?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate to have him, or to have ridden him, and I think so, yeah.
The good thing about him is he can probably go distances, can't he? Like anything probably from 2 to 3
Yeah, but I think
time.
any good horse can do that at the same time. I think, like, Constitution will win over 3 miles, of course he would. But yeah, he could step up all the way through if he wants, but he's definitely no need to do it for now.
So we'll get on to the last few years in a minute, but as you mentioned right at the start, you went travelling. You obviously thought you would come back and I'm Aidan Coleman, people will just use me, or at least if you didn't think that, you would hope. But you have been light on rides.
It hasn't worked out. Like, say, I finished last year with 3 winners at Aintree and a winner at Punchestown, and then went off and did what I did and came back, and it's not really worked out.
Friends like you, though. Let's have a listen to what Sam Twiston thinks about you. He's a good friend. You've mentioned that already.
Yeah, great friend.
Aidan Coleman, very good friend, great jockey, all around very good guy. I think obviously we've been known each other a long time, always got on very well. Still stayed with each other a lot up in Aintree and got many good memories together, and hopefully we'll have many more in the future.
I mean, I feel that was a very edited version, but it was very complimentary, wasn't it?
It had to be edited, I'll tell you that.
Because he's sort of your partner in crime, isn't it?
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Tom Bellamy, who wouldn't be one of your best mates,
good.
but he said this.
He's a good guy, very level-headed, always there if you need help with anything, and he's always there to put an arm around you if you need it as well. So, yeah, he's a great guy and he's deserved everything he's done over the years.
Don't worry, there's much more than this. You're not getting away with it quite like lightly. And Emma Lavelle, of course, who is the trainer of Paisley Park, she just opens the door slightly, just slightly to another side to you.
Well, he is a deep-thinking, neat freak who has been massively instrumental in the development and success of Paisley Park. He's a great rider and has been a good friend to us over the years. So, yeah, top bloke.
Deep thinking, neat freak.
Yeah, I've got a neat thing, yeah. House has to be spotless and all that, yeah. So I'm a bit OCD about things.
Okay.
And like my peg when I get changed and all that, I like it to be particular.
And the deep thinking side of things?
I don't know, it's probably just who I am, isn't it?
Yeah, we've signed a couple of that. Jockeys Championship. Not so long ago, you were thinking to yourself, you could be champion jockey. Talk to me about that period.
Well, I suppose I was always kind of in the mix for it, as in the fact when AP and Dickie retired, there was going to have to be another champion jockey, and I, at the time, might have had as good a chance as anyone. And when COVID came back from COVID, I really gave it. I remember coming back from a road out for Kevin and Joseph O'Brien for the 3 months of COVID in Ireland, and I came back and I was like, right, this is. I rang Dave Roberts and said, this is what I want. This is what we're going to do. I think it was 2 weeks into the season, I got a fall at Suddle and basically missed the next 3 or 4 months. So then that was out the window. I kind of felt I'd missed the boat a bit and probably gave up a bit easy on that. But you kind of, like, was it attainable for me? Maybe, but now at this moment I have absolutely no desire to be champion jockey.
So we spoke about Emma Lavelle, and we understand, of course, that Paisley Park is a horse of a lifetime. Not always the easiest of rides, though, as we see in the 2018 long walk here. Off the bridle, typical Paisley, flat spot, but you know he's a horse who's going to dig for you.
Oh yeah, probably at this time it was his first run out of, an open company. Like, I think he ran in an Albert Bartlett or something like that, but he's coming to this race on the back of winning a handicap at Haydock.
Yeah.
And mind you, no disrespect to any of the horses in the field, but you look at that, you stop that there now, it's basically a handicap now, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
It's probably his worst grade 1 bit of form, but he was a horse really on the up, and some of them weren't on the up, those other horses, but near 1,000 winners at this stage and never had a grade 1. So
Yeah, we should say, because you
a
banged in 1,000 in 2019, was it?
I think
2018,
I
19?
think a couple of months later,
Yeah.
I did 1,000, so I would have been on 970 or 80. And funny that me and Sammy did it the same day as well.
Did you feel this day he was a real legend of a stayer in the making?
Yeah, I probably did. You didn't, because I remember you on the way back into the winners' enclosure, you said it goes to coach you how bad that division actually is.
Well, I think that race kind of showed that.
I
It
don't
wasn't
think
a
you're
strong division.
No, as you say,
it's not a strong division now either. So I was right.
Try win it.
Well, that's the old. That's like saying, "Have you ever ridden a horse before?" I mean,
No,
it's the
it's
old
not.
cliche, isn't it? Try and win it.
Yeah,
But the simple truth is, really, when you come down to it, that no division is that competitive at the top end, because you only have to look at flat racing. Flight Island Bide were miles better than everyone else. Jumps racing, Constitution Hill is far better than everyone else. Like there aren't that many real super duper horses, are there? I mean, that's the truth. I'm being lazy in some ways by saying that the division's not that competitive, because the divisions are never that competitive, really.
But I suppose this is competitive because it probably does lack a Flightliner by either
But there was a time when
Constitutional.
you would just know Paisley would win all the staying
Only
overs.
this season actually.
So he came back in 2020 and won another long walk,
Mm-hmm.
and he did that in style. Beats Time Hill. You see, I think Time Hill is a proper horse.
Well, he is a proper. It was great to see him win the Grade 1 on the same day, which is not against each other, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I think these two together, they are capable of serving up a dish to be enjoyed, as they did here
as well. She was a good mare, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You can't have thought you were going to win here.
no, because Harry picked my pocket leaving the back, which is good riding from his behind half and bad from mine.
So I'm pretty sure I did the winning interview with you for this race, and I was stood just by the rail here. You can't quite see me. Do you remember the Richard Johnson scream? I've never heard someone scream in a race like Richard Johnson. He was so angry
But
at that moment.
if you're going to get beat, we all don't like losing, but that is the worst way to lose a horse race. I would much prefer to get beat Paisley. Like, if I'm going to get beat, I'd prefer to get beat not getting there than get there and someone come and do me on the line.
Yeah.
Because you've got the hope and all the emotions. You can see the line you wanted to come, and then it comes just 2 strides too late and you get beat. It's just, if you could bottle that feeling, you wouldn't give it to your worst enemy. It's horrific. So, yeah, Icky's...
I mean, as I say, it was a noise.
I like what she's on.
Because this was during COVID, wasn't it? There was no one there, as
It
you
was a
can
shame,
see.
wasn't it? It
Yeah.
actually would have been a great race.
And just, you could hear Jono echoing around the stadium. It was like, ah! As you went past. It was
look where I
quite
get to him and look where the line is, though. You know what I mean? Like it's there, like, you know.
Look, you could see him there.
that's it.
Jono, he's still losing it. Look, watch Richard Johnson rather than yourself here. I know that's hard, but you watch Jono's face.
It's a horrific feeling. Oh, jeez.
And he's throwing everything.
And they've done nothing wrong.
No, it's
But
really
I
a
would've-
perfect race.
But I would have been an unlucky loser. That's the other thing. I would have been an unlucky loser.
It was extraordinary to watch.
Got me out
There's
of trouble.
Jono. Look, it's the end for
I would
him.
have done the same.
Nearly was the end for him, to be honest. You probably ended it for him.
Don't put that on me. Like shooting Bambi's mum, wouldn't it?
Do you have a special rapport with Paisley now? Is he a horse that when you sit on him, you think, it's my old friend? Or
Well,
is
you
it
have to, don't you? Have 10 races on him.
probably
give me
bought a
the
wing
bit-
of the Coleman house, hasn't he?
I haven't gotten. Still don't have a house at the moment. So yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
much
look,
point in
I think
out
I'm
the country after you.
I think, yeah, I think I'm so fortunate to have. I think, like, if all the horses that anyone, like everyone has a flagship horse. Not everyone. Anyone who's lucky enough to have a flagship horse. I think even Paisley is like, he's another level again, isn't he? Like, he's been a mainstay for was 2018 to 2023 now.
We all think, I think, that he's a mudlark.
He actually doesn't like heavy ground.
But is it just that it slows the others up? It gives him a chance to chase.
A lot of his better form is on.
Just with him,
Fair
I want to ask you though, because you mentioned to me something the other day over in Ireland that you felt that Danny Mullins and Floring Porter, Danny rode races round Cheltenham that really ruined it for you.
Yeah, like, I think the year after he won the Stairs, that was his to lose, and look, he had the heart problem, which is just really frustrating because it hadn't come to light before or afterwards, and ultimately we got beaten. You know, should have been 2 Stairs hurdles anyway. But the next 2, Danny just controlled the race from the front. Paisley's not a front runner. He's not a handy. You don't ride him handy either. So you're a victim of your environment, and although he goes a gallop, he slows it down at a stage that when Paisley needs to be getting into the race, he gets in. By the time you get near him, he's had his breather, he goes again, and he's gone again. And
Because there'll be punters who are saying, well, just sit closer, but you can't.
It doesn't suit sitting closer. It really doesn't. He doesn't like it. He'll drop back anyway. So he prefers to follow. He just likes it. Like we rode him handy one day at Newbury, and he was probably his worst run nearly. Yeah. But Danny was brilliant in the last 2 stairs hurdles, and I knew it from the back, but you cannot do anything about it, which is very frustrating. So I think arguably, like, he could have won, a lot more stairs hurdles, but it hasn't worked out. But we're not going to complain. It's been a great journey.
And with John Joe, how did that? I mean, you had 2 years there. Obviously, John Joe Jr. is coming through the ranks. Did you just sight him coming and thinking,
oh yeah,
I'm going to be out of here soon, anyways?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Like, great fella, good friend now. He was coming through, and again, back to, like, we didn't have the quality of horses. So ultimately, like, I don't believe in. I think nepotism is a thing, because you kind of make your own look or whatever. And like, I have no into racing, and I still got to where I am. I think you might get a bit of an easier lead in at the start, but you'll ultimately be found out. But like, it didn't matter if John Joe's surname was Coleman and he was just a young lad in the yard. He was destined to be where he is now, and he's going to get further. So didn't have the quality of horses that a jockey like me would have kept the rides on. You got the young lad coming through who was, I was just the first to see, bar anyone in the yard, that he was top class, claiming 7. So I said, well, I need to try and reinvent myself again. So off we went.
Who do you think's a good jockey right now?
Loads of them, really.
But who would be if you were watching 3 jockeys right now, who would be 3 that you think? I mean, Sam Twiston's going to be in the 3, isn't he?
Of course he is, yeah. Of course he is. He should be in everybody's 3, to be honest. I cannot understand how Brian Hughes isn't the first in the team sheet. Well, after second in team sheet after me for the big races. I think he is just unbelievably good jockey, like ridiculous. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he doesn't come down here. But he doesn't come down here because he's not getting offered any rides down here. I think he's a fabulous jockey. He's got the best hands ever, and that's the main thing I look at in the rider's hands.
You can shout me down here as this is just stupid. Would Brian lack experience in big races, which sounds crazy, but could that be a difference, that he doesn't ride in Grade 1s very often?
No, not at his experience now. Not at his experience. You look at his Grade 1 winner, which is Waiting Patiently, was an absolutely fantastic ride. It was cool, It was everything. Around that time he went over and he won the, I don't know what it's called now, but it's called the Schweppes and all that big 2-mile hurdle at Leopardstown. Leopardstown, like the Kevin Prendergast 30-runner race. He won that. Yeah. Brian Hughes would ride any horse, any day, anywhere. He does it all the time up north.
Yeah, he can go from the front.
Yeah, I always say he doesn't sit in the weigh room enough, more than anything. I think he goes out to ride horses. I think he probably shouldn't be riding that. But
trainers, we've talked about the trainers quite a bit, but one guy we didn't mention, for instance, Anthony Honeyball, has given you loads of winners. Is there a trainer, and Honeyball might be the one, but is there a trainer out there who, I mean, Ollie Murphy, you've had you were his main man for a little while.
Yeah,
Why did you split with him?
We'll get to Ollie in a second, but you mentioned Anthony. Because you mentioned him, like, he's a very good friend of mine as well, but we've had some great days together, and he's a yard really going somewhere. It's maybe not been a slow burner because he's been very successful, but I think it's a watch this space with Anthony. He's having horse aren't running well at the moment, but I think he's just about to crack it. Okay. I really do think he's just about to crack it. So he's been a mainstay when we had the journey from Venetia to John Joe to freelance. Anthony's always been there, as well as, I suppose, Emma and Charlie Longston and I hope I'm not missing anyone. If I am, I'm very sorry. But so Anthony, and then on to Ollie then, yeah.
Well, with Ollie, I was surprised, to be honest, when he seemed to just say that he wanted someone else, effectively. Was that because he wasn't getting you in certain races that he wanted you when you had the John Bonds or the Epatants or the Paisley Parks, or was it just did you have a big row or something?
No, and it was literally, I said when he rang me, and like I did say, I said, don't go to the papers because no one will probably notice. And I said, like, not to the papers, sorry, but I said, don't announce anything. I said, you don't need to. It's he rang me, and he didn't, not really. He suppose he did an interview, didn't he, with Luke? But I suppose he felt he had to do that as well. But like when he rang me and explained to me, like, I half stopped him short and I said, Ollie, I understand. Like, you're making, like, I fully understand your decision. Like, you don't have to explain anymore. It's fine. And I rang my brother afterwards, Kevin, and he said, well, kind of half laughed, and he said, well, you got the best end of that deal for the last 2 years anyway, so you don't be complaining. And I wasn't complaining. I was ringing to tell him the story. But like, I suppose when Ollie offered me the job, I was coming back from my shoulder injury, and before I left, I wanted to be champion jockey, and I was hungry and all that kind of stuff. And then the injury happened, and then I came back. And when he offered me, I hadn't started back yet, and probably should have been said, actually, Ollie, I'm actually going to play my career a little bit different from now on. And you have to realise that Ollie's got over 100 horses. He's got some retained riders, so that's a few of them out the window. And then there's clashes with, like, his best horses clashed with Thomas Darby, clashed with Paisley, and John Bond clashed a couple of times when he had runners, and Epiton clashed with Brewing Up a Storm. So then all of a sudden he's got a stable jockey who doesn't ride the retained horses, which is obviously fine. His big ones, I'm not really committing to them. And then because I focus on quality over quantity, there's a lot of the horses I don't want to ride as well. So like he made 100% the right decision, and there was never ever any I never ever kind of thought like any ill will or anything like that towards him. No, and we'd still be friends. I've still ridden winners from this year, and I've got a couple of rides from coming up. And he did the right thing, if you know what I mean. Well, I wish he didn't, because it's more winners and more rides. Yeah. But I fully understand why that situation. Probably dropped the ball on my part there, and didn't see it coming to a point. But I made my bet. I kind of have to lie on it now. But if to go back, I probably would have played things a bit different. Yeah.
So you had some good days with Ollie Murphy. Brewing Up a Storm, I feel, is a bit of a character horse, and we've got 3 examples here. This is a good day. This is Brewing Up a Storm in the National Spirit race down there at Fontwell, and he shows what he can do on this occasion. But you had other races where you got beaten by Botox Has here, and also at Cheltenham in the Rail Keel, where of course he got rid of you at the last. He's a funny horse, isn't he? Because he's got loads of talent.
Yeah, he is. He's a very good horse, and he's been very good. Like, I've won a good race at Taunton on a main tree. He won this. He won the mid-final at Linkfield or whatever it was last year as well. So he's won some very good races.
They made hard work of that, but yeah.
Yeah, but he beat Goshen. He's come out and...
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
True.
He's been a very good horse. He's probably... It's a shame chasing wasn't for him, because that's probably where he would have made his mark.
He's built like a chaser.
Yeah, he lacks maybe a fraction of size, but it's a shame chasing wasn't his cup of tea, because that's probably where he would have progressed again.
But things always, as I say, didn't always go right on him. The defeat in the National Spirit by Botox Has was turned into a massive day for Josh Moore, because effectively it was the ride he came back for after injury, and of course eventually ended up being the last big race ride he had. So we learn of that victory. We always talk about Botox Has, who's in the white colours here, where you're just in behind. A race you feel you should have won?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Jeez, yeah. Probably should have watched the Relkeel before this, but I put him on the floor, we put ourselves on the floor at the Relkeel from being a bit indecisive, because I didn't want to get there too soon. And this race was very different. I know he got to the front very soon the year before, but it was a very different contest. And
I mean, you look all over the winner.
Yeah.
For me, this is not a bad ride.
No,
this is the horse jacking it in.
Well, because he idled in front at the time, like, he's not going forward there. But if he hadn't fell in the Relkeel, he would have won this race, because I committed him too soon. He got to the front and he pulled up. But that horses do that at Fontwell no matter what they are. But the best horse didn't win that race.
No, he's coming back, although
the better
fair
ride
play to Josh.
The better ride won that race. That wasn't a good ride. That's why. But
but that Rail Keel, that tumble at the last.
Yeah, so
he
that's
suffered
why,
not for the first time either.
No,
form figures at Cheltenham. It's got 2 Fs and a U, I think, at Cheltenham.
Yeah. They don't tell the whole story. I think it's a bit look, they're facts. So like, he fell that day because I got upside standing, and instead of committing and thing, I was like, I just want to stay upside him a bit longer and not commit too soon. And then I ended up taking the hurdle for granted, and the rest is history. And then we go to Fontwell and saying that's not going to happen again, and send them on. And I should have actually probably rode that hurdle like I rode the Cheltenham one and not fell, obviously. But so we left a lot of winning percentage there now behind. And yeah.
So let's just recap very quickly, because I want to play you something. So you're an intelligent lad, got
Thank you.
teaching parents, whether you really wanted to be riding horses as a young boy is a bit debatable, depending on who you talk to.
I
But
don't
you've
know.
ended up clearly winning loads of pony races. Come over, you've mixed with different trainers. Maybe you could have given Venetia a bit more, but you learned a lot from Hen and Terry. John Ferguson, clearly amazing. Honeyball, amazing. Ollie Murphy, ups and downs, but you know, you were happy with his decision.
Yeah, very happy.
But I think we think we're understanding you a little bit.
Best of luck.
But then the bombshell, because then we speak to Will Kennedy, and this is what Will Kennedy says that we've got
15 plus years I've sat beside him in the weigh room, in the car going racing, in the pub. He's quite often in our kitchen for dinner.
Yeah.
We're genuinely great mates. We did a bull run in Pamplona last summer, and he came to us for Christmas. But I still wouldn't say I really know Aidan Coleman. He's a mix of opposites. When it comes to a trip, he'd go anywhere in the world, but he wouldn't chance a single vegetable. There's 100 examples like that. He's certainly a deep thinker. If he doesn't know the answer to the question, he'll go away, research the topic, and then he'll tell you the answer long after you've forgotten the conversation. I think that's why he's such a good jockey. Sure, he's stylish, and he rides like an artist would paint a picture, but he's so naturally competitive. He wants to be satisfied he's got it right. He's so determined. No man or beast will win an argument with him. Just look at Paisley Park. He'll often say, it'll either win or it won't, but if you believe that's what he really thinks, he's already got you beat.
That's good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for Will, that was exceptional. I thought.
Yeah.
But is Will right? Is everything? Was there anything he said there that you would, if he'd sat here, you'd be saying, "Come on, Will, that's not me"? Or do you think he has got you in a nutshell there?
Yeah, but he hasn't got me in anything, is he? He still says he doesn't know, does he? I don't.
Well, that's
know.
it, he doesn't know.
But you know, yeah.
So am I none the wiser?
No.
In 5 years' time, where do you see yourself?
I have no clue. Don't know. If you asked me that 2 years ago, I'd say still riding horses. Now I don't know. Not a clue.
Would you like to be?
I don't know where I'll be in 2 years' time.
Could you see yourself not riding horses?
I could see myself riding, and I don't know. You see, as I said, a mixture of opposites is interesting. I could see myself trying to challenge Brian Hughes, or I could see myself doing something else. I don't know. I really don't. I genuinely don't know.